Being human, do you ever wonder what makes us who we are? Our habits, preferences, or where we came from? We are expressing ourselves in thousands of ways every day through our choices. Let's have a conversation with people who are having interesting lives. My name is Alun Walker. I'm a doctor of chiropractic and a human being. I'm very, very pleased to have with us today a great friend of mine, someone who I've known now for around about, well, since 2017. A gentleman who has offered me an awful lot of help, a lot of training, a lot of support. Not just me, but I know at least 60 other professional graduates who have been working within the same company, where Dr. Quinton Hol has been supervising, managing, and, as I said, organising the training. So I'd like to welcome on today Quinton. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. It is a privilege, always.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a privilege for me. It's great to have you on. It's really good to have an opportunity to do a bit of catching up as well. We did briefly at a training that we were both at last month, but after speaking to you, I thought, you know what, let's bring you on and let's have a chat and a little catch up. And there are a lot of people that know you, but they don't know your background. So if it's okay with you, it would be great just to ask a few questions and see where you are, where you've been. And a lot of people don't know anything about your family and your background and where you've come from. I think they probably guessed that you might be South African.
Yes, the accent gives it away. Definitely.
So you were born in South Africa?
Yep, born in South Africa, born and raised, rural South Africa from the countryside. So small town, one school, one big shop, lots of churches. So very conservative upbringing in the rural countryside. It was beautiful though. It was really rural country fun. You know, we were outside playing as kids all the time and it was great. Really, I'm very grateful for my upbringing. It taught me a lot. But I knew that when I had the time when I was 18, wanted to see the rest of the world, and that's what I've done. Thankfully, I've been able to do it.
So 18 years old. What happened when you were 18, Quinton? Where did you go?
So finished high school, and it is part of my chiropractic story. I didn't know what I wanted to study, so I applied to a whole bunch of things at universities. I applied for medicine, I applied for genetic studies, for teaching, for music. I was going to do a music degree at one point, and when I finished high school, then I wasn't too sure which direction I was going to go in, because somehow I got accepted for every course I applied for, including medicine. So I was on my way to potentially becoming a surgeon. That was the goal at that point, and didn't really, when I finished school, none of it was really bringing me much joy. I just thought, you know, is this really the right thing to do? So I made a decision, much to my parents' initial shock, to just say, look, I don't want to do anything at the moment. And I'd rather go abroad and just perhaps work and find out what it is that I want to do. And borrowed some money from my uncle, who had some extra money, and bought a ticket to London, and arrived in London with a backpack and 110 pounds when I was 18, having never seen a train go underground. And there I was in one of the biggest cities in the world. And that's kind of kickstarted things. That's where I really was able to get exposure to what the world is. The whole world is in London. And it's you know, we had some really hard times there. I don't know if I told you this before, but at one point I was working in a pie factory in a place called Haywards Heath, and living in a trailer park. I lived in a trailer park, shared my trailer with 2 other people, had no heating that was working, frozen windows on the inside, used to work from 4 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, making those lovely pasties and pastries for Tesco's, wherever it was. And it was, you know, a hard thing to go through, and had to persevere because I needed to make some money to carry on living. And then I finished that job, went and ended up working in a factory in Cheltenham, doing menial things. We used to prepare circuit boards for another company. Like, what do I know about that? Absolutely nothing, but got away with it. And then worked in the States at a summer camp as a lifeguard, again, still having no idea what I wanted to do.
So
And
what was the reason for coming to England? What was the initial reason? You know, why not somewhere else? Why not France? Why
I
England?
was
And then why
at
America?
that point, yeah, I understand. At that point, South Africa we were able to get youth mobility visas. Young people can still do it here in the UK to go to Australia or New Zealand or Canada, I think it is. And at that point, we could do that. So I got one of those youth mobility visas, which allowed me to come to the UK, have holidays and work, not full-time hours, but I was able to work as much as I wanted to, really. And I mean, it was a thing at the time, early 2000s. Everybody was coming over to England from South Africa, young people. And I was just part of that mass migration, if that's the right word. And yeah, I was on my own and made it work. You meet people and you're forced to meet people and you're forced out of your comfort zone. At one point, I was selling Jongleurs Comedy Club tickets on Victoria Street, cold selling. I was stopping people on the way to work, being like, have you been to Jongleurs Comedy Club? Are you interested? Really cold selling. It was hard in cold rain. I was doing front door fundraising for charity work when they had just switched from when you were allowed to give cash to only debit orders. So I had to get people to give me their bank details when everybody was terrified of that. So all of it was a learning experience. I mean, I didn't make it easy. But learned so much. At one point, I was living in a cupboard under the stairs in a flat in the Barbican because that's all I could afford. And as a tall person, my feet would stick out the bottom and people would walk over me on the way to work. It was extraordinary.
Surreal. It's absolutely
Surreal.
surreal by the sound of it. Yeah, and then
Completely
America.
I'm sorry?
How did America happen? How did America happen?
That was, my sister had worked at a summer camp in the mid 90s and she had such a good time. And when I was in the UK, it was really tough. And so she suggested, why don't I try a summer camp? So I applied and got placed at a camp in upstate New York. So it was 1.5, 2 hours outside of New York City. And I worked on a lake for 6 months and it was incredible. Like standing, Baywatch was in my mind, red Speedo and all that. But I just stood on a lake looking after kids at summer camp and then did a running camp and a football camp after that. And it was just a lovely experience. And again, met people from all over the world. And it was actually at that summer camp where I had to make the decision what it is that I wanted to study. Because then the universities were like, right, you have to confirm whether you're coming or not. And I remember having been at the pub, at the bar in the States, having drunk vodka and orange juice. And I came back and my mum got in touch and she was like, you have to make your decision now. And that's where I decided that chiropractic was the route to take. And
why chiropractic?
Yeah.
Sorry, Quinton. Why was it?
It was spontaneous, was one of the big things. But also a big thing was when I had observed surgeons and doctors in hospitals, there is a depth of illness that's there. And you're surrounded by very sick people. And a lot of it isn't about expanding health. It is getting people away from deep, dark parts of healthcare. And I didn't feel that that's where I belonged. That didn't fit. And when I had observed chiropractors, there was this joy in practice. They looked really happy. They looked pleased with what they were doing. And people coming in, some of them, yes, were in pain, but people left with hope and a bigger part of health than just not being sick. And I think that was probably the biggest deciding factor, was that difference of, where do I see myself fitting in? And it wasn't that. It wasn't walking on wards. I admire people that do that because that takes a certain type of strength, and they are vital to saving people's lives. But that's not the saving lives that I wanted to be a part of. It was another way of doing it. And that's where chiropractic, and it was done on a whim, where I went, right, that's what I'm going to do because that feels right. And it did, and that's how I ended up then at the university after having traveled for a year.
So you flew from South Africa to London, to America, back to South Africa again, where you were to train?
Yeah, there was a bit of a, from New York, I did fly back to London, had another 2 months in London, and then went back to South Africa, and then I started training. It was, yeah, then it began the 7-year journey. Yes.
So the university that you went to, which one was it you went to?
The Durban University of Technology in Durban, South Africa, so on the East Coast. Yeah,
Okay, now
beautiful
7 years
place.
degree.
It was 7 years. One of the reasons behind that is after I had done the academic component, I was employed to lecture. So I ended up teaching general pathology, systemic pathology, physiology, and tutoring anatomy. So I used to tutor cadaveric dissection, which was an amazing experience as a part of it. But in me being involved in the academic side of things, it took, my dissertation then took a little bit longer while I was also working in the clinic and all of that involved. So it ended up being 7 years. But in those 7 years, I learned an unbelievable amount by also teaching. And it was teaching the basic medical sciences. So not involved in that time teaching the chiropractic side of things, but very much the medical sciences. And it was amazing. It was, again, a privilege to be a part of it, because it was a deep dive into the deep part of health. So from the cellular through to the tissue, through to the pathologic presentation, it was amazing.
So what was the background? Why were the university interested in you specifically as a student to actually come in and teach? Because it's not normal. Anyone listening to this is going to go, there's something more to this story than that. And I think this is, I'm asking you really to fly your flag a little bit, Quinton. There's a reason why you did that. I'm interested in hearing it.
I would say that at heart I'm a deep nerd. Really, that, well, the glasses, but I did well academically. But there was when I studied, there's a certain joy that I get, and it's that there's something about learning that just, there's something switches in your brain, and I love that feeling. And so in that, I really pushed hard at university. I did really study hard, and I did well. And through that, I developed relationships with some of the senior lecturers. And then I didn't expect it to be offered one of the teaching roles. I was in the middle of the beginning of my 6th year, and somebody just invited me out for dinner, one of the lecturers, and he just said that he's leaving the country and he'd like me to take over. And he had been in that role for, I think, almost 20 years teaching. So, and then it was handed to me, which was frightening, and a big learning experience. But I just still see it as, lucky or a privilege that I was given that opportunity. But I had worked really hard, and that was acknowledged in that way. But it wasn't something that I particularly applied for. I was asked whether I would do it. So I did it and dove in and did a whole lot of learning and studying and learning about teaching, because that is a thing on its own. There is so much to understand behind that. So yeah, I did that, taught a lot, worked really hard, and carried on doing work in the clinic and got through. It was amazing.
Brilliant. What was your next call? After that, did you stay in the country? Did you work as a chiropractor there? Once you'd finished the 7 years, where did you go?
So I had finished the one teaching contract that I had at the university, and there was a couple of other ones in between. And at that point, I was kind of done with it. I just thought to myself, well, I am so exhausted. I don't know what I want to do. And I was sitting in a bar again with a friend, and they said, well, do you want to go to Thailand? And I just went, yeah, I'm on board. I want to go. And 5 weeks later, I was on a plane flying to Bangkok, which doesn't make any sense. But it was, again, one of those things that just felt right. And I thought, well, I'm just going to give this a go. And again, didn't have a lot of money, was trying to pay off a student loan, had a backpack and a few thousand baht, which isn't a lot when you convert it to pounds, and landed there, didn't have a job, didn't really have a place to stay, but figured it out. You walk the streets and you find something to do. And I did. Was employed by an agency and got a job, and ended up at some point teaching in a high school, teaching young kids, but also did some work with an American chiropractor there, and was just, yeah, again, still couldn't quite believe what was happening to me. I mean, what a bizarre environment to be in. And again, I was on my own. I met some wonderful people whilst I was there. I'm still friends with so many of them, and just learned a lot about life, so much about, again, wonderfully about different healthcare systems and the way that they look at health. And in Thailand, for example, I'm sure we've all experienced a Thai massage before, and there, how it's a part of culture to have your body worked with. And there they do a type of manipulation on the spine when you're getting those massages. And it's seen as such a proactive thing in healthcare there. They go for massages regularly. It's part of what you do. And I had never been exposed to that before. And to see something like that, and I dove right in. I got a massage once a week. And there it's done in an open plan room. So you're in a room with 15, 20 other people all getting massaged at the same time in this like collective healing. And it was just great. I love my time there. I'm going back now in April to go and visit Thailand again. It's somewhere that I love. But yeah, it was a hard journey there as well. You know, from the bottom up, you've got to work. And I did. And it was fantastic. But that wasn't it then.
What was next?
So finished Bangkok, and I enjoyed the teaching component very much, part of what I was doing. And then I moved to Johannesburg. My uncle lived there, and I then enrolled to study teaching because I had been involved with it so much. So I did a teaching certificate at the University of Witwatersrand, which is one of the universities in Johannesburg, and learned the theory behind education and how to apply it quickly and do it in environments that are different. And it was, again, it was a hard experience because it was intensive and having no understanding behind it. I was in a class with people that had PhDs in linguistics and who were incredible at already understanding that much of languages. And I was kind of thrown in with them, and it was amazing. I learned so much about it and the theory of teaching. And then it happened again. I was employed by the university to then teach teachers, which doesn't make any sense again. I was lucky enough to have that job, and at the same time was working as a chiropractor in Johannesburg. Worked in a small practice room, and it was great, whilst doing the teaching and teacher training. And so again, it was one of those things that just happened, and it happened to me, and I was very lucky to have that happen. So that was for a year. And then the next part of the journey, I was offered a job in Mexico. So off I went. Who was I to say no? And from being offered the job to moving, it was 4 weeks. So I then got a job in northern Mexico, in Monterrey, and I stayed there for a year. And it was at the time classified as the 5th most dangerous city in the world, gang violence. So I saw some atrocious things. I was held at gunpoint twice. I had things taken off me, but carried on working because it was an incredible place. And what a culture, just full of art and life and beauty. And it was just great. The pay was awful. And did some chiropractic work there as well. And it wasn't, financially, it wasn't the smartest move, but from a life point of view, it was remarkable. And then got offered a job in Saudi Arabia. So went there and ended up living in Saudi Arabia for 3 years. Again,
this part of the story I really like because it reminds me of the BJ Palmer type of scenario. He traveled there, didn't he? I was reading one of the green books that he traveled to the Middle East and was working with some very influential people, different levels. That was, yeah. And so when I heard your story, I've never forgotten it. Let's put those two together.
Yeah. I mean, it was bonkers. I didn't know anyone, just got this job offer, and I thought, right, I'm just going to do it. Why not? Because there's a whole world. And I'd done at that point, 4 different countries, and it was time for another. And it was at that point, Saudi Arabia was incredibly conservative, and it is still a dry country. There was no gender mixing. It was very strict at that point. You couldn't play music outside. Art was not allowed. Music festivals, art festivals, none of that was there. And worked my way through. And it was, I got to meet some influential people, and worked as a chiropractor there, and taught at universities there, and managed to find myself in palaces at certain points, which I just never expected in my life, working in those and seeing things that I had only dreamed of and being a part of it, and just
I
being
have to
exposed to
ask.
that life.
I've got to ask, Quinton. I'm sorry to butt in, but you can't just drop in. I worked in some palaces without actually giving us some more details on that. I mean,
That's why
are
we
you
signed
speak about
NDAs.
this?
I can't name
Yeah.
drop, but there is certain documents signed that keep those things confidential. But it was, yeah, I got exposed to a very powerful family and met some incredible people and ordinary people at heart who just need help with life, and sometimes health expression needs assistance. And I was lucky to be a part of that journey. And it gave me some true experience of what the world is. It's a beautiful place. Even in the most difficult countries, people just want to be happy and enjoy life and not be stressed and live a healthy life. And that's pretty much what everybody wants everywhere around the world. And from where I've lived, it's pretty much the same thing. Have a good life, have enough food on the table, and be healthy. That's what people want, and enjoy it. And I got to experience that, and still am experiencing it. So it's been a wonderful journey. And that was from Saudi Arabia. That was 3 years. And then was offered the job in the UK, and then moved here and have been here ever since.
Brilliant. So you worked for several different companies. One of them is one where you actually interviewed me, and
Yes.
I'm very pleased that I took that job. It was 2.5 years of my life that I invested with working within that company, and it's most definitely set me up. I learned such a lot from yourself. I learned a lot from every single person that I met there. With between, I don't know, 50, 55 different people there working as um, chiropractors or physiotherapists or sports therapists. It was a really great environment for learning. And so 2.5 years there was very well spent. I was very pleased that I couldn't have imagine being anywhere else during that time. So
From a
that was,
learning.
I'm very thankful, very grateful for that opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all learned a lot together, didn't we? It really
Right.
was. And it was a continuous learning environment. And I think that's what I'm so grateful for. It was the exposure that we got, what we learned, who we met. It's been a vital part of who we are as chiropractors. And I'm so grateful for that. And got to meet a lot of wonderful people along the way, like you. Look, we would never have met otherwise. And here we are.
No, exactly that. Exactly that. So for you, one of the things you brought up just a few moments ago was you were talking about life expression, which is I'm familiar with it, obviously, being a chiropractor. But for anyone who's not familiar with that as a definition, do you mind just explaining a little bit more about your definition, the definition of life expression?
Yeah. So to me, when I think it was Anna Echevesta who taught us this, and I really love the way that she spoke about it, is health is on a spectrum, right? We all know that. And life, how you live your life is on a spectrum. And you can live your life at 0, which is, you're not sick, but you're not really well. Or you can live below that line to, let's say, the worst is being like -7, where you're really ill, things are constantly going wrong, your body is just not thriving, and you just can't seem to get on top of things. Stress has a huge impact on you. Or you can live above that 0 line where you're thriving, where your body is expressing its health, where you can have challenges thrown at you and your body is able to adapt. It's able to self-regulate. It's able to manage whatever is thrown at it and not become ill, because you're living in a higher expression of health. You're not within a sickness. You're not sick as a person. You are thriving. And that to me is what health, that expression of health is. It is that you're not, it's not merely, the World Health Organization says that it's not merely the absence of disease. It is living at that optimal health. And that is what health expression is really getting up to that level. So your body is using all of its internal mechanisms without interruptions. The chemical systems are firing the way that they should. And that's what health is that you're living in an optimum state. You're not just not sick, you are thriving. And that's what I try to get across to my patients as much as possible. We want to get you out of pain, but we want to get you to that next level too, which is where it is an optimum expression of health.
How do you, what was the very first moment that you came into contact with chiropractic?
The first time I got in contact, it wasn't actually the best experience. My father, he had mid-thoracic pain, and initially just thought that it was something, like a muscle spasm. And he unfortunately had a broken rib. And at that point, the chiropractor didn't image him and adjusted through a broken rib. So that was my first experience of chiro, which you think would kind of chase me away from it. But it didn't, because that particular chiropractor got such fantastic results with so many people. In this case, in that instance, the first time that I got exposed to it, that was, things sometimes don't go well. And that's okay, because my father did end up going back to chiropractors, as did my mother, as did my sisters, as have I. But that first exposure wasn't that great. But then from there, I was exposed to that incredible thing that it is. And it's been great so far.
So did you did you use chiropractic yourself? Were you a client before you were a chiropractor?
Funny enough, no. I observed other people having chiropractic done, and that was enough for me. I thought at one point, got I go for physiotherapy or, like I said, medicine? But through observation, really, it was that got me into chiropractic, the difference that it makes and how people are within practice. That was it.
That's quite a powerful pull. Did you see some magic? Was it magic that you were seeing initially? Because you won't be able to feel this. You had to.
It was the feeling inside the clinic. That was it. I know that sounds really strange, but it wasn't like a sick environment. It was people were happy to be there. And I mean, if you think you go to a dentist, no offense to dentists, you do an amazing job, but that's not the most health exciting environment. And often in different types of health clinics, there's a lot of it's a hard, heavy feeling, but that wasn't within chiropractic. So that's what drew me to it.
Yes. So did you, it's a long time ago, I'm aware of this, Quinton, but were you aware of the thing that we understand as being the subluxation? Were you aware that the chiropractors that you're watching and the people that you were observing receiving chiropractic, when was the first time that you saw that and that became clear to you what chiropractic was actually about?
Yeah, I had no idea really. When I was younger, I just had no idea. That was not part of my lexicon. That was not something that I used. And it was just through observation. That was honestly it. And it made a difference. So I wanted to get involved. Obviously, then from that point, you do reading on it and you do understanding of what it is and the neurology behind it and the impact that it has on the human body. That's what got me into it. It wasn't, I wish I had some story, where I couldn't walk and then I could walk. I used to suffer from headaches and then I didn't suffer from headaches. That's not my story. It was just exposure and seeing what it did and how people were. And that's how I got into it. And that's part of what I try to do when I'm in practice. That's that experience that a patient can have. It's just walking into the room can make a difference. Just if the right energy is there and the right environment is there, that can already be a part of the healing process. And it's that which I find remarkable. And that's what we do. It's great.
Do you have any stories of either through your people clients you've been able to help yourself, or with other chiropractors which have been surprising to you about the power of chiropractic? It was, for example, Tim Young was recently speaking about
it was actually quite an emotional one. He was talking about a couple with a pregnant lady who had a child, and how he was able to help with chiropractic and turn their lives around, and that was a wonderful thing. But did you have any stories like that? If you do, I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear one.
I mean, there's quite a few, isn't there? I mean, it's a daily thing, and that's what makes it
Yeah,
so lovely. There's always, I mean, those cases of people in extreme pain who come in, and then within a couple of sessions, they're just different people. That's always a remarkable thing. But then it's also those people that have been in chronic pain. I remember very distinctly there was a patient who had been suffering with fibromyalgia after severe trauma and had been on mountains of medication, and she came in. It's so often, don't we experience it, as people come to us as a last resort because they don't know where else to go. And with her, I remember just a transformation. And it was just, I kept it as simple as possible, only adjusted the areas where there was a found restriction, and kept it really simple. And it was a remarkable turnaround. And one of those cases where, she iterated at some of her treatment reviews, how, she was at her last, that was the last straw, she was just that far. It was so hard. And she came in and it just changed everything. I mean, then she started bringing me an artwork that she had done as an expression of what had come out of her. And it was just quite something, to know that that's what a difference that we can make. And it wasn't through, it wasn't complex what I was doing. I was keeping to the basics. And I think that's what I love, is stick to the basics, make it simple, and you get the results. Because there's beauty in simplicity, and that often gives us the best results. And with her, it really was that. I still think about it so often. She's still in London, but it was, when I was there. And here I'm in Bristol at the moment, and it's, we get results all the time. That's what we do, and it's just great. I really enjoy it.
Who are you working for, Quinton? Who do you work for? Who are you working for at the moment?
So it is a remarkable practice where I am one of the least experienced practitioners, and I'm so grateful for that. It's in a clinic that's been open over 60 years. Well, I think it's coming up to 60 years now. It's one of the oldest in the UK. It's on one of the high streets. It's in the Parker Clinic. It is beautiful. The owners have been there. One of them's been there for over 20 years. The other practitioners have been there 15, 12, 17 years. I've come in as the newbie, and I've been there for 3 years. And it's a remarkable environment, this wonderful interaction with everyone, where there is so much experience that if there's something that really baffles me, I have this library of experience that's right there with me. And it's amazing. It really is fantastic.
But one of the things that you're excellent at, brilliant at, is actually teaching. But is it nice to have a break from that? Is that something you're going to go back to?
I definitely think I'll go back to it, and in some way, shape, or form. It is. I love it. It's. There's something magical in teaching, and I miss that. But right now, just being in practice and just enjoying it has been such a privilege again. I haven't had to overthink things at all. I could just go to work and go home and just enjoy being a chiropractor, and that's been wonderful. And it's been a lesson in itself, because again, every patient is a teacher. So it's been good. It's been so good.
It sounds to me like this is probably the best time of your life. That's what it sounds like. Like you've been doing the exciting things, but now you're pretty much just cruising through for a while and just enjoying and smelling the coffee, they say, don't they?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, from thinking about where I'm not, I miss some of the excitement of walking the streets of Bangkok, but now I can do it without having to look for a job. I'm just enjoying it. Like you say, I'm just taking my time and finding so much pleasure in that, of not having to worry about much else. And I think that's that's the magic in it. I'm just enjoying myself, really am.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of seems to me that you, some people at that the time of life that it sounds like you might be in, suddenly go off and do something totally different. And what I love about it is that you've got no, it doesn't sound like you have any intention of doing that different job, that change vocation, do something unusual. You're enjoying doing this. I think it's the best profession in the world anyway.
Yeah. And it's I feel, you know what the thing is, like, I don't feel like I need anything else. As simple as that is. This is great. Like, and that's what it should be, isn't it? You know, you should just be enjoying your life, and I'm finding that joy. Life has been hard for me. You know, I have put myself in very difficult situations in the past where it has been tough in other countries where I don't know anyone and nobody speaks the language, and I am on my own fighting. And I've gone through it and I've learned so much. And now it feels like I'm applying that. And that is where I suppose the joy comes in. It's just being able to live and enjoy it.
So here's a question for you. Now that you're living and enjoy it, what are you doing for your recreation? What are you doing with your spare time?
Having fun. I mean, I love to travel. I think, you know, obviously from my past, it's something that brings me a lot of joy. So I plan in holidays. I think that's important from a physical point of view. I think as chiropractors, we need to be very aware of that because you can quickly wear your body out. So just make sure those are in place. And I plan trips away at least 2 or 3 times a year. And that serves me really well. So from a recreation point of view, as you know, go to the gym, running. I'm still running a lot. Weekends, it's just finding things that give me joy, like, you know, visiting friends a lot and going to the theater and going to the pub and concerts and just enjoying life. You know, we work to enjoy our lives, and I find joy in work and now out of work as well. And that's what I'm doing.
Do you know, it sounds brilliant. There'll be a lot of people, I think, what will chiropractors be watching this and going, do you know, that's right. We've got the best job in the world. And perhaps I should just turn the clock, just slow things down just a touch and just enjoy and glide through this, helping people. You know, it's a wonderful way of spending our days.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're not going to write any books?
Done one of those. Now I no.
You never said this. You've written a book.
Yeah, but that's from a long time ago. It's I don't know what's coming next, and I kind of feel like it has happened in my life that it will come my way. I'm not in this drive to be like, oh, what's the next big thing? You know, life has I've been in this entanglement of life now since leaving home at 18, and it's been wonderful, and it's just happened. You know, I have worked hard and I've pushed really hard, but the right things have always happened at the right time. And that sounds so cliche, but it does happen if you just let go. And, you know, feel the fear and do it anyway. That's such a common phrase, but it really is important. You know, even starting with this current job that I have, prior to that, I made a decision to be unemployed, to just have a break from work. And I had 3 months out without a plan of going, you know what, I'm panicked. I don't know what I'm going to do. I had a 3-month gap, and I thought to myself, the right thing will come. Just listen, you know, to what's going on. And then the job advert that came up while I was sitting in a car outside a cafe was for a clinic that is 200 meters away from where I live. And it turned out to be this one. I mean, what are the chances? And I applied for it and I got the job. And so that's how I'm kind of just letting myself enjoy life. I think so often we get distracted by so much of it and what we think we should achieve, or what we think people think we should be doing. And just letting go of that makes such a big difference. Just enjoy it. Really.
You know, this is really what I've I've in the past, I've spent, like I explained earlier, you know, to anyone listening, 2.5 years working and associating with yourself, and just learned so much. Um, and what I've got from this podcast is actually sometimes it's good just to, it's a little bit different to what you used to teach me. You
Yeah.
know, we were, when I was working with you, I was desperately trying to help as many people as possible. Obviously, it's a good thing to do, but you know, it was a numbers situation, and I thought, you know, am I good enough to be able to help, you know, 70 people, 80 people, 100 people, 120 people? It was that type of situation, and I don't think I ever got to 110 actually, but it was very important to me at the time. And now you're teaching me that sometimes it's good just to go with life.
Do you know what's so interesting with this as well is in that I've gotten busier, which from a clinical point of view is it's perhaps the frantic energy around me has gone. And so I'm able to do more work in a much simpler way. And I understand that when, you know, when I did do the training like that, it was about, you know, push as hard as you can, try and serve as much as you can. And I still think that is important. I think that is important, particularly when you're starting in a profession, is to kind of dive in and just go for it, because that is that, you know, it is, as you experienced, it is a hard journey at the beginning because you're learning about so many patients and so many ways to do things. It can feel overwhelming, but that is an important thing to go through. It is, you know, dive in, work hard, and then you find that balance. So it is very different to what I was doing and what I was teaching, but I'm still getting, if not better, results at the moment.
That's interesting as well. I think that's another thing I'll be taking away from. I'll be giving that a lot of thought. Calming down, being more perhaps in the moment. Maybe, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I'm not overthinking things. I would like to think. I say that, you know, our brains are weird things. There are times where we do overthink, but it certainly has become with simplifying things. It's become easier. I've found, particularly in my roughs at the moment, and I don't know if it's a certainty thing, but it's just a fluid thing. Talking to patients now, just trying to make it as simple as possible and make the options for them as simple as possible. Basically, you know, what we do works. Treatment is a process, not an event. You know, we've got to go through this journey together, but you will reach a result in the end. And if we don't, we modify what we do and we'll get a result a different way. And it resonates, and people stay and they get better. And I'm so pleased about that. And it's just simplifying it has made it easier. But would I have been able to do this had I not gone through hard training and really pushed myself? No, I don't think so. It's been a process to get here.
Yeah, we had regular training, didn't we? You would be training us once a month, once every 6 weeks. It was regular.
Yeah,
Everyone would be getting for a weekend of full training.
Yeah, and even sometimes during the week. Do you remember we used to sit after shift after 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock at night training? And we've taken all of that with us, and now we're using it in practice, and that's made such a big difference. So if we hadn't have done that, would we be where we are now? I don't think so. So that makes the difference. But it's been a journey and a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, just to sort of back that up, I still enjoy training, and since December, by the time I got to the beginning of February, I'd already done my hours for my CPD, and I haven't even begun on the courses I'm doing this year. So I can't get enough of it, and I'm enjoying doing that. This isn't hard work for me. I'm mixing with other people in the same profession as me, and it fills my soul to be learning and to be fine tuning.
Exactly. And to learn from the experts, learn from the people that know the most, know the ones who know exactly what they're doing. I mean, the weekend that we had together, it's made such a difference in my practice already. and it was just, that was 2 days. So it is, you're in that environment, your brain soaks up that knowledge, and then it's just being able to use it immediately. It's magic. That's teaching,
which was
right?
the course that we, yes, the course that we did was for anyone who might be interested, was with Ulrich Sandstrom, and I came away from there with some real, there were some moments, things that he taught us there, which I've never ever seen before. Quite unusual ways of dealing with clients, and the results were amazing. A different way of looking at it. No, I thought it was, anyway. I've booked on again. I'm going to Amsterdam, which I believe is in July with Ulrich. So I'm going to do that again, because I'm not sure how long it's going to be running those courses for. But that's another good one. So I know it's obviously Amsterdam, so I'll have a beer while I'm over there. That'll be good. Listen, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and I want to thank you as well from my heart for everything that you did for myself and for everyone else that was fortunate enough to spend time and to train with you, because Quinton, you are a great teacher, and without doubt, I'm not the only one who was pleased that they had time to associate with you. So again, blessed we are that we've had time to be with someone like yourself. Quinton, thank you for coming on, and I'm sure this will be shared around the people that have worked with you. They'll quite enjoy learning some things that I didn't know about you before. So thank you again, and hopefully in the future we can I'll perhaps do this again.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Quinton. Cheers.